Okay, we're ready. Hey, welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. I'm your host, Hanna Nuss. Just the person coming in your ears. That came out wrong. Okay, weird. Let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. This is just our daily practice of refocusing on the amazingness that is you. Period. And your ability to do that and really create sight lines to how amazing you are is super important as you continue in the practice of just movement forward, movement in any direction, backwards, forwards, no matter where you're going, greatness is required. And don't overthink greatness. I think we keep it on this pedestal that's so unattainable, and the very practice of greatness grounding puts greatness in a point in your life where you practice it every day versus just saving it for special moments. We tend to stop categorizing things in that way when we start to practice it every day. So it's similar to gratitude, but it really is gratitude for your own greatness. What are the great things that you're making happen? And I think sometimes when we shift into gratitude, it's almost as if we aren't the ones who are responsible for the great things that we do. And while, yes, okay, there are divine gifts that are given to us from somewhere else, but we are the ones physically putting it into action. So we have to start to recognize ourselves. We have to start really taking time to own those things so that other people can recognize it too. And so that we're just ready. I don't know. It's about to be called on. Sorry, love ya, but you're not going to go through life never having this called on. So we practice it. Okay. My great thing from, the last couple of days really has just been we're nearing baseline. And let's see, I left my job in June of last year, and I'm not sure that we have been at baseline since then. And so I'll explain baseline in case you haven't been here. And I don't know that I've talked about it really. Baseline is really everything is clean and calm in your space. So the energy of all the spaces in which you are in. And I like to think about this as home, and home is where my baseline is. And so where the energy sits in those spaces, and I haven't had enough energy, enough willpower or focus to bring us all the way back to baseline. And that looks like this: always having one thing that's unfinished that then works us into spiraling out of control again. And I don't know, why can't I just put away that last load of laundry? Why can't I just do that last load of dishes? Why can't I just put the dishes away? All these things. And it's not to say oh, Hannah, you're so bad, you haven't finished anything. It's just you get into those ruts, right? And this last 8-9 months has just been a very, very low state. And I've been working to not force myself out of it, right? To allow myself for the first time ever to fully feel it, to allow myself to fully sink into the depths of what that looks like, and really just allow that space, that room. We can't force baseline. Baseline isn't something that we just jump into and everything's going to be okay. If we're not in a mental headspace to build, there's no point in even getting to baseline. If that makes sense, right? I I know that I was being protected from baseline because I wasn't ready to even pretend that I was in a place to build. Right. And so I would keep getting called to like clear out and mess something else up and make sure that I wasn't able to attain that baseline status so that I couldn't build on a shaky foundation. Right. Requirements of calling ourselves back in. And that looked like every time that I would get close, something would happen, right? A sickness or something that would just spiral us. And I think, protecting me from myself is very important for the universe. Like, no, sis, we still have more growth. If I let you get here and I let you start finding a stride, I know what you're going to do, right? And so I'd get called back. Like, hold the phone, sis. We're not ready for you to go back out there yet. Just relax. We'll get you back out there, but we're not ready. And so this is the closest that I've been to reestablishing like a good energetic pulse. And we'll see. We'll see if we get there. But that looks like in the mornings throughout the day, there is a rhythm that the household chores, that the house falls under and in, and it can understand how to respond back to you as you put out what your schedule is going to look like to handle these things. And when you get too far away from baseline, like I have been, everything just constantly falls out of that rhythm, right? And that's because there isn't one. And so like laundry is trying to beat to this drum and dishes are trying to be the piano. Like they don't know what they're doing, but they're all trying to do their own thing and keep you on just their path, right? And not acknowledging that everyone exists within itself. And so you find it. You'll find it when you're supposed to. And so I have a feeling that us nearing, I'm like crossing my fingers, can we be ready? I have a feeling us nearing this baseline means we might be ready to build. And I think that's like such a beautiful place to be in. I'm so excited to be back there. But I'm also really appreciative that I took time to just listen. And you were with me, maybe some of you were, when I was like, nope, we're not listening. I can feel it. I'm listening. We're ready. And I got called back pretty hardcore, with sickness. And so I think that was just another lesson of like, you're not in control. Can you go ahead and remember that? And how many times do we have to show you how little control you actually have? And that is the truth. And so we've given up control, right? And that's what, like, I know that if we're meant to regain control of the baseline, if we're meant to go there, it'll happen. And then we'll know, and we'll start to get into a flow. And even though everything has seemed so chaotic, I think it's just been in this idea of not being able to get control of it and like not wanting control of it. But when you're striving for control and you can't get it, right? It just draws your mind all sorts of out of control. So I don't know if that makes any sense. And maybe that's way too high level and hippy dippy to even sink in. But there comes a time where you have to just release control and understand that when you're called in. Like when you get pulled off of the bench, you better be ready to go. And that's the importance of the silence. That's the importance of the self work. That's the importance of, really following your intuition and letting that guide you versus sitting there and knowing that the house has to be clean and knowing that this has to be done and it's on my timeline and I'm going to get this done. Really, like, you'll be guided in and out of those spaces all throughout. And so letting yourself be just walked, like, let go of it. And that's so hard, right? Because some of us thrive there. Some of us, that's the only thing that we might ever have control over, right? And there's something beautiful about just letting it go and letting it be and seeing, right, where you end up. I don't know. I have this crazy feeling that you'll be okay. And I know that that's a hard one to swallow. I'm with you. But you really will. You really will be okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get in today. Go ahead, take your time, recognize yourself for your greatness, because here's the deal. Nobody's going to do it for you. And people will expect you to be really great at this thing, at your own greatness, at speaking to it. And they'll expect you to show up with that. And if you haven't practiced it, you're going to be behind the cart here, people. Okay. So today, I can't even remember what we titled this. I should probably look. Let's see. What is the title of this? Okay. This totally makes sense with what we were just saying. So the title is Trust That It All Fills In. And this is about really releasing that control, right? Like letting it go. And then just letting it become what it's supposed to. Yikes. And it's so funny because we're totally in the opposite culture, right? Like, do not let anything go. By all means, if you let go of it, it's going to go crazy. You're never going to be able to regain control and you'll never get anywhere. And for goodness sakes, and I think that was one of my biggest worries as I ventured into this space, was like trusting myself and my own flighty, crazy brain. Right? Like, Hanna, yikes, you have so many ideas. How are you ever going to land on just one? Like, how are we even going to be able to breathe in this space? Because you're overwhelmed. Like, your energy and your thought process is overwhelming. How are you going to survive? You are going to drown in these ideas. This probably isn't a good space for you. Maybe it's important that you are reined in. Right? And trust, I have asked a couple of supervisors in my time, like, please load me up with so much that my brain just can't think. Because when I think, we all get into trouble. And I don't know. Now that I've been testing that, I think it's my greatest superpower. And I used to think that it was my greatest deficit. Right? And I think it just depends on where you're applying it. When you're trying to apply a brain like that to a world that thinks very much in a very specific box, of course that's going to be a terrible thing to have. Yeah. Right? Like, that is not someone we want in these spaces. That's someone who's going to interrupt and interfere and possibly disrupt. And what if we changed everything? Like, that's generally, in some industries, a really great person to have, and in others, a really terrible person to have. But, right, where does your mind belong? There's a chance that your brain isn't wrong. And by chance, I mean 100%. Okay? There's a chance that the way that you think is not wrong at all. You may just be in the wrong place. Right? And so when I dove off, it was just like, oh no. Oh no. what do we do now? We're supposed to do something. We're supposed to run. Okay. And that's what everyone, oh, wow, what are you doing? How are you going to do this? What's your plan? Oh my gosh, she probably doesn't have a plan. Oh no, she probably isn't going to make any money. Oh no, what is she going to do? How is she going to breathe? How is she going to, and you really have to just ignore everyone's opinion and idea of what your life is going to look like anytime that you venture out into doing something else. So if that looks like going back to school, if that looks like X, Y, and Z, people want to fill in your picture for you, right? Because it gives them ownership of your success. By the way, gosh, I love people. I think people are the most beautiful gift that we have on this earth. Like people and their energies and the things that they add, as long as you understand people are good for you and they can be not meant for you as well, right? And so some people are just coming into your life to come in, teach you a little lesson, give you a little learning opportunity, and then they're gone, right? And we don't have to hold on to everybody. That's not our responsibility. Hold on to everybody so tight that we can't even see straight because we have so many people in our address book. No, some people are meant to just play a very small role, teach a very small lesson, and then sometimes they just go away. And that's a beautiful thing too. And so gift yourself the ability to just say bye to those people. But I think here's what happens if we allow ourselves to really love the gifts that we bring into this world, love them versus hate them. And we all grow up in this environment where probably the things we're really good at, we're taught to kind of hate, right? Because a lot of those things look like feeling, look like intuition, look like things that you can't really learn in a book, that can't really be taught either. And so that's scary, right? Those are scary things to trust. We want to trust the things that are very black and white, that can be taught in a book, because then we can replicate it, right? And then we know exactly what we're up against, and we know exactly what we're creating and exactly what to create as a result. Oh my gosh, it's getting deep, right? And so when we're creating people like that, we would be teaching them that these things really aren't valuable, right? And then all of us who have been presented and brought up in the box, which most of us have, work into this world thinking that these things are hurting us, and then we work into this like psychotic state where we question everything, where we have this imposter syndrome, where we have these limiting beliefs that hold us back, where we have all of these things that are just telling us that we aren't enough, that this isn't a good person to be, that we shouldn't question anything, that there's not a bigger reason, there's not a bigger call, there's nothing special about us. And then boom, right? We have to silence those things somehow. And so then we start looking for numbing mechanisms, right? And then all of a sudden we're so numb to everything that we don't even really know how to show up or exist true to ourselves. And then we just kind of disappear, right? And that was my very, very, very specific presentation to the world, to my adult life, like searching for something, questioning everything, and then just latching on to the first thing that anybody would acknowledge and running as fast as I could to try to get somewhere, not even knowing what that was. And they'll continue singing it forever just because this is a song that, and that's where I would have lived my life. This is the search that never ends, and it's okay today to just start denouncing those untruths in your life, right? Like, the beautiful things that to be true to you, that you've been told for a while that aren't good, that aren't worthy of anything, start bringing those back in. And that'll look super specific and different for everyone. So my journey back really looked like a lot of time out in nature, which is the complete opposite of who I was before. Really looked like a lot of silence. Again, complete opposite of who I was before. Really just looked like a lot of yellow, a lot of re-exploring things that I liked before, and just a lot of sinking into self and judging the reaction of how I felt about that, right? What it gave me. And now going into situations, I think it's a superpower, right? Because whereas before I would have just reacted and reacted and reacted instantly on a dime. And I'm very quick-witted. And so that was something that I was really good at. Like, yes, I can decide, I can develop, I can train and live and love, and like, I'm there. And I can be funny, and this is perfect. And for me now, it's almost like receiving whatever it is 3 different times. So there's like this first layer where I receive it right at base level, and that's where I used to react. And then there's this second level of, right, see it, I'm not going to react now. So we're not reacting on that first level. Then I take it to that second level of like, what does this mean to me? Do I have any reason to react? Do I have any reason to be here and to be in reaction mode? And then the third level is just like this overwhelming love for people. And for me, it's like, I want to just react at that third level, like just with love, no judgment. But right, there's a in tune humanness to judgment, and so that one's going to take longer for me to process and work my way out of. But right now, it's like a 3-level response. I want to work it down to that last level where it's just all love. I'm just not quite there yet, but right. We've developed a system where it's coming in and it's working through, and it's the first layer. Okay, I hear you. I'm not just reacting here anymore. I'm not just allowing my emotions to drive this. Even though this is my initial reaction to whatever is being said around me, to whatever is being said to me, that may be my initial reaction, but I'm going to take that in and I'm going to hang out with it for a little bit. Right? We're just going to hang out, and I'm going to sort through, why is that making me react in this way? What is glaring about this? What am I worried about with whatever is being said or presented to me? Right? What is the fear here? What is the anxiety? How am I taking this in? How am I absorbing this? And then now, and this has just been a recent, now it's like sorting through all of those things, bringing those things up, having those realizations like, oh, and then filtering to this love layer where it's just like, we've shifted into this space now where there's just beauty in how everyone lives their life and how they operate it. And there's really no one way that works for anyone, right? Like, you could listen to this entire thing and get to the end and be like, oh, that didn't really work for me. But, right? You can love yourself enough. Maybe you've learned enough about yourself to know a little bit more about what does work and what does speak to you and what does move you, which gets you a step closer than where you are before. And, for me, now it's just about that third layer, the adding of that third layer. And I would say that fully added on, let's see, what day did it snow? Maybe it was Thursday, but I could feel the shift, and there was like a big experience and moment, and now it's like we've unlocked this third layer of understanding and this third layer of where I want to end up, which is just like love for the human experience, love for humans and the way that they just find a way to like live and thrive and grow. And that's so beautifully unique and so beautifully divine. Like, and that everyone has their own path. And so, like with this work, I know that I started out thinking like, oh, I'm going to be the answer and I'm going to present all of the answers. And what I'm finding now that I've added third layer is that there isn't really any one answer. And I know that we've been bouncing that around for a while, but this is what you can trust. If you're listening close enough, really listening, and it's funny because you're listening throughout your life, in quotes, listening. But once you truly tap into that, and any of you who've had this experience, and I just had this conversation with my friend, and her and I have been talking about this for a while. Like, you really just, you start to hear it. You start to take steps, and then you start to get signs, and then it all starts to become real. But what you realize is that you've been getting signs and signals for a very long time. You just weren't listening, right? And you don't know that when you're in it, but you do later. And so as long as you're willing to just really move in that first step, the whole thing fills in. The whole thing fills in. And like for me, when I started this podcast to where we are right now, to where we've been on the entirety of this journey, is like we thought, right, that we were going to get somewhere and that there was going to be all this instruction and guidance, and there was, but it really was based on my individual story. And that may be something that guides you really well, or it may be something that doesn't. But I know that we've been guided to this place now where it's just an acceptance of true love for people and how they present in this world, and the fact that everybody has something that just lights their entire world on fire, right? And that gives them the ability to be a light, right? And not a light to light the world, a light to light themselves. And I know that that seems super selfish, but that's what it is, right? If you can light yourself, and lighting yourself looks like enough self-love that you can wholly and completely love others because you understand what love is, then you don't have to light the way for others, because their lights are turning on along with yours, right? You won't have to guide anybody. You'll all go together, right? Their energies will start matching yours, and all of a sudden you all are this big burning light. And then more people come along, and you're an even bigger burning bright light. And it all starts and ends with self-love and making yourself a light. And you can't just keep giving it away. You can't just keep lighting for other people. You can't, right? That self-love piece is so important. But I'm telling you, it all fills in. It really, really does. Your job is to sit back and listen to how it's going to happen. Not try to control to fill in. Listen to how that is going to play out and how it's going to work, because you're being told, you just might not be listening. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.